Hey there, this is Kristen Underwood, UVM Civil and Environmental Engineering Department. At our Monday Water Resources Institute webinar held November 4th, 2024, it was made clear that not all folks in attendance were aware of this Vermont flood event aerial photo viewer. So this quick video will just give you a sense for how to navigate this web app. It's really an important web app maintained by the Vermont Center for Geographic Information. It's storing imagery and videos collected by drones, airplanes, satellites, focused on the flood events recently experienced here in Vermont in July 2024, but also December and July of 2023. And it's a really vital resource for town planning. And I'll just enter here. And you can see the state of Vermont displayed on the right. And what's visible there are dots where imagery has been collected in hours and days after the floods of July 10th, 11th, and July 30th this past year, 2024. You can see that if you hover over each of these bars here, there's a little eye-shaped icon. If it's clear, that's letting you know that that layer has been enabled for viewing. And if it has a slash through it, then that layer or folder of layers has been disabled for viewing. So what we're seeing here on the right-hand side are images from the July 10th flood. If we toggle on and off simply by clicking on this bar as we hover over it, you can turn that imagery off and on, and that's revealing that these dots are photos and videos generated during the July 30th um, event, which impacted the Northeast Kingdom. There are also reference layers available, and these are best viewed if we zoom into a particular area. So let me zoom into Hardwick as an example community. Just by hitting this plus bar, you can zoom. And for clarity, I'm just going to toggle off for the moment the ortho imagery collected after the July floods of this recent year. So here you can see kind of a gray canvas backdrop. If we select this button here, you can see that labels are turned on. So these are labels along streets primarily. Occasionally there's a prominent building that might be labeled. We can bring in a layer of building footprints from VCGI as well. That's helpful for viewing their position with respect to rivers. We can also click on contours to give you a sense for the lay of the land. I believe these are 20-foot contours. And here is a layer that we talked about in Monday's seminar, the topographically defined floodplains. These were a layer that was generated by our research team here at UVM, led by Rebecca Deal. And these are displaying a full range of design floods for this location. These are here, if I toggle quickly over to an information slide on this layer, these are floodplains that are available for the Lake Champlain Basin of Vermont for rivers that drain greater than 2 square miles in area. These are available to support conservation, research, and planning. They're not designed to be a substitute for regulatory layers like the FEMA floodplains. Rather, they are here to support planning and conservation. This is the color bar of the design floods represented in this composite probabilistic layer. And so if we scoot back to the aerial photo viewer, you can see this layer displayed. The dark blue represents a 2-year flood, all the way up to red, which represents a 500-year flood. For those areas that have them, the FEMA floodplain layers are also available. I'll toggle them on. I'm going to turn off the topographically defined layers for the moment. Here you can click on any one of these polygons and it will bring up information, metadata for that layer. So the hatched polygon represents the FEMA floodway. The blue or turquoise polygon represents the FEMA flood zone AE. We can head back to the layers in the aerial photo viewer simply by clicking on this button here. And let's bring up some base map imagery for this location. And I want to point out the inn along the river. This imagery here predates the 2023 floods, and this particular inn was impacted by the 2023 floods. So we can see that by toggling on imagery from past flood events here. And in particular, ortho photos. So in response to the July 2023 floods, the UVM Spatial Analysis Lab came and did an overflight of this area of imagery, and it captured the damages to this building. They also gathered photos, and let me for the moment turn off the 2024 photos and turn on the 2023 photos. So here, if you click on any one of these dots, they represent a photo image that was gathered by an entity, in this case, Agency of Transportation. So you see the photo view here, the date of the image, and the agency that gathered that photo and uploaded it to the aerial viewer. This inn was undermined by an eroding stream bank during the 2023 July floods. And in subsequent months, it was demolished and this area was regraded and seeded. And then this whole area was again impacted in the 2024 floods. So if we go back to the layers and turn on ortho photos from July 2024, you can see that that seeded and graded area was again eroded by flooding in July 2024. Let me just toggle on and off again so we can see how this building appeared prior to 2023. Let's turn off the FEMA floodplain layers. Just after the July 2023 floods and after the July 2024 floods. Another layer that came up for discussion during Monday's seminar was the Agency of Natural Resources River Corridors layer. At the present time, the river corridor layer is not available under the reference and base map layers, but still you can view this layer by heading over to the ANR Natural Resource Atlas. Go to Quick Tools, zoom to a town. I'm going to pop in Hardwick here. That brings me right to the town, and then I can zoom in to that particular location. Again, the imagery, the base imagery in this application predates the 2023 floods. You can see the inn along the river and its full footprint. If I go to layers here and add the river management or rivers program layer, this will bring up the river corridor layer. Let's for the moment, just to clear the view, remove the stormwater data and also the parcels. So this yellow line represents the stream center line. It's yellow because this river was assessed using stream geomorphic assessment protocols. But more importantly, this boundary area, this shaded yellow area represents the river corridor and would include lands that were susceptible or vulnerable to erosion flooding that occurs during a flood. And so you can see that the full building is contained within that river corridor layer. So it's not quite ideal. Um, Ideal would be to have this river corridor layer also available as a reference layer within the imagery flood container, but we can see it here at the Vermont Natural Resource Atlas, and then pop over to the aerial photo viewer for the flood information.